In the year 2000, a French marine archaeologist named Frank Gaudio was diving in Abu Qir Bay, 14 kilometers off the coast of Alexandria. He was looking for Napoleon's fleet. He did not find it. What he found instead, at a depth of 6 meters, was a city. Not ruins. A city. Temples, harbors, granite statues, sphinxes, and intact ceremonial boats still anchored at a pier. Thousands of objects spread across 11 square kilometers of seabed, gold coins, bronze vessels, sarcophagi, a stele carved with hieroglyphs that confirmed something historians had dismissed as Greek mythology for 2,000 years. The city was Thonis Heracleion. It was the largest port in Egypt before Alexandria existed. Herodotus visited it in 450 BC and described it in detail. Egyptologists spent 2 centuries calling him Rome, because no physical trace of the city had ever been found on land. It was not on land. It had been underwater since approximately 800 AD, when a series of earthquakes and soil liquefaction dropped the entire delta into the sea. In the 24 years since Gaudio's discovery, archaeologists have mapped only 5% of Thonis Heracleion. The Egyptian government has restricted independent diving since 2011. What lies in the other 95% has never been described, documented, or photographed. That is the pattern you are about to see 7 times. A city is found or not found, because it was never supposed to disappear. Something important is there. Something is discovered. And then, by natural force or political decree or modern construction, the city is sealed again and whatever it contained is placed permanently out of reach. 7 Egyptian cities. 7 sites where the history of human civilization is buried, flooded, or locked beneath land that no one is allowed to excavate. Number 1 on this list has never been excavated at all. Its location is known. Its contents have been partially described. And the government of Egypt has not issued a single excavation permit for the site in over 40 years. Stay until the end. Because number 1 is not underwater, not buried by earthquake, not lost. It is sitting beneath a modern city, fully intact and officially unreachable. Every city in this video has been confirmed by peer-reviewed archaeology, satellite imaging, or official government surveys. Every discovery mentioned was documented before access was restricted or the site became inaccessible. We are not presenting theories. We are showing you the documented record, the excavation reports, the museum catalogs, the official announcements, and asking why so little of these sites has ever been studied. 7 lost cities. 7 sealed histories. Let's begin. Number 7. The Nile Delta, Egypt. 1939. In the spring of 1939, a French Egyptologist named Pierre Montet was excavating the ancient city of Tanis, a site in the northeastern delta that ancient records called the Throne of the Two Lands. Tanis had been the capital of Egypt during the 21st and 22nd dynasties. By 1939, most archaeologists considered it a secondary site, likely stripped long ago by tomb robbers. Montet's team broke through a sealed chamber wall on the 19th of February and found the intact royal necropolis of Tanis. Intact. Untouched. 5 royal tombs containing the burials of pharaohs Sosenzai, Amenemop, Shoshenq II, and several members of the royal court. Gold death masks. Silver sarcophagi. Lapis lazuli amulets. Thousands of objects comparable in quality to the tomb of Tutankhamun and in some cases exceeding it. Sosenzai's burial alone contained a solid silver sarcophagus nested inside a black granite outer coffin, a gold death mask, and over 500 pieces of gold jewelry. Archaeologists who saw it in 1939 compared it directly to Carter's discovery of Tutankhamun in 1922. Some argued it surpassed it. 3 months after the discovery, Germany invaded Poland. World War II had begun. The press was absent. The photographs were unpublished. The world was looking elsewhere. Montet worked alone through the war years, documenting what he could. The wider royal necropolis of Tanis, an area that likely contains dozens more sealed tombs, based on the surface mapping of the site, has never been systematically excavated. The last major dig concluded in 1994. The city that held Egypt's gold for 500 years is 90% unexcavated. What else is in the necropolis is unknown. No excavation permits for the wider royal district have been approved in 30 years. Number 6. Abu Qir Bay, Egypt. Submerged. 11 kilometers east of Alexandria, in the same bay where Thonis Heraclean was found, a second city lies on the seabed. Canopus was the religious center of Egypt's northwestern delta, a city dominated by the Temple of Osiris and the Sanctuary of Serapis, where pilgrims from across the Mediterranean came to seek healing and divine judgment. Ancient writers described Canopus extensively. Strabo visited it in approximately 30 BC and noted it as a city of extraordinary wealth and religious significance. Seneca wrote that its canals were crowded with boats during festivals. Juvenal complained that the morals of its inhabitants had corrupted Rome. No one on land knew where Canopus was until Gaudio's team located it in 1996, 4 years before finding Thonis Heraclean. The city is spread across 2 square kilometers of seabed at a depth of 2 to 5 meters, shallow enough that pieces of it have been visible to fishermen for centuries. What the divers found at Canopus was the Decree of Canopus, a bilingual stone stele, predating the Rosetta Stone by 70 years, recording a royal decree in Greek and Demotic script. Its surface inscription was so significant that it fundamentally altered scholars' understanding of Ptolemaic religious law. That stele is now in a museum in Alexandria. The temple complex it stood in, including the inner sanctuary, the healing pools, and what ancient accounts describe as an underground library of medical texts, has not been excavated. The Egyptian restrictions on independent underwater archaeology in Abu Qir Bay, issued in 2011, apply to Canopus as they do to Thonis Heraclean. The city of healing is at the bottom of the sea. The sanctuary is intact. No one is diving there. Number 5. Middle Egypt. 1346 BC and present day. In the 4th year of his reign, the pharaoh Akhenaten did something no Egyptian king had ever done before and none would do again. He ordered the construction of an entirely new capital city on a stretch of virgin desert on the east bank of the Nile. He named it Akhetaten, the horizon of the Aten. Today it is called Amarna. Within 20 years, Amarna was one of the largest cities in the ancient world, housing an estimated 50,000 people. Within 3 years of Akhenaten's death, it was abandoned. His successor, the boy king Tutankhamun, returned the capital to Thebes. The priests who followed dismantled Amarna's temple stone by stone. Within a generation, official Egyptian records attempted to erase Akhenaten from history entirely. His name was chiseled from monuments, his city was left to the desert. The city was rediscovered in the late 18th century. What remained under the desert sand was extraordinary: painted floors, wall reliefs of unprecedented artistic quality, archive rooms containing thousands of clay tablets recording diplomatic correspondence between Egypt and the ancient Near East, the Amarna letters, which rewrote the history of Bronze Age diplomacy. But Amarna has a problem. The modern village of El Tel sits directly over the center of the ancient city. The northern palace, the records office, the royal residence, and large sections of the administrative quarter are physically beneath occupied housing. Excavation would require demolishing a living community. In 2013, excavations at the Workers' Cemetery, located on the desert margin away from the village, produced findings that have never been fully published. The skeletal evidence showed trauma rates and nutritional deficiencies inconsistent with the official Egyptian narrative of Amarna as a prosperous capital. The data suggested systematic overwork and malnutrition on a scale that implicated the pharaoh's building program directly. The cemetery report was submitted to the Egyptian Ministry of Antiquities in 2014. The detailed findings have not been released to the public. The city that was erased once is being erased again, not by priests, but by unanswered permit requests and unpublished reports. Number 4. The Eastern Nile Delta. Approximately 1650 BC. Before the pyramids of Giza were the symbol of Egyptian civilization, Egypt had a capital that no Egyptian king ever acknowledged. Avaris was the city of the Hyksos, the foreign dynasty that ruled the northern delta for over 100 years during the Second Intermediate Period. Every Egyptian text that mentions the Hyksos calls them invaders, occupiers, and despoilers of the kingdom. For centuries, Egyptologists treated Avaris as a historical footnote. In 1966, an Austrian archaeological mission began excavating a site called Tel El Dabbe in the eastern delta. They did not expect to find much. What they uncovered, over the next 4 decades, was Avaris, a city of over 250,000 people, the largest urban settlement in the ancient world at its peak, with trade connections stretching from Canaan to Crete to Cyprus. And beneath the palace complex, they found something the Egyptian record had suppressed completely. The throne room walls of Avaris were decorated with Minoan frescoes, bull-leaping scenes, griffin hunts, hunting scenes in a style identical to the palace paintings of Knossos on Crete. Not Egyptian art. Not Hyksos art. Minoan art, painted by Cretan artists or by Egyptian craftsmen trained in Crete, in the throne room of Egypt's most politically sensitive city. The implication is direct. At some point before 1550 BC, the Hyksos rulers of Egypt and the Minoan civilization of Crete had a diplomatic or political relationship close enough to decorate royal spaces with each other's iconography. This connection does not appear in any official Egyptian, Cretan, or Near Eastern text. The frescoes were excavated. The findings were published. Access to the inner palace district of Tel El Dabbe was subsequently restricted by the Egyptian Antiquities organization. The section of the palace that contained the fresco evidence is no longer accessible to independent archaeological teams. The city that connected Egypt to Crete has not been fully excavated. The connection that the frescoes represent has not been officially explained. Number 3. The Fayum region. Approximately 1991 BC to 1650 BC. For nearly 400 years, the capital of the most powerful empire in the ancient world was a city called Ichtoi. It served as the administrative center of the 12th and 13th dynasties of Egypt, the Middle Kingdom period that produced the most sophisticated literature, the most refined art, and some of the most precisely engineered monuments in Egyptian history. Amenemhat I built it. Senusret III administered it. The Great Lahan papyri, medical manuals, mathematical treatises, and veterinary texts were written by scribes working from its administrative offices. Ichtoi does not exist on any map. No one knows where it is. This is not a matter of interpretation. The ancient records are explicit. Ichtoi stood at the entrance to the Fayum, near the pyramid of Amenemhat I at Lisht. Ancient Egyptian texts refer to it repeatedly by name. The Turin King list describes it as a functioning capital. Papyri found at nearby sites were clearly produced there. But no archaeological survey has located the city. The site at Lisht has been investigated since the late 19th century. The pyramid is documented. The administrative center that surrounded it, the palaces, temples, archives, and harbor district that housed Egypt's government for 4 centuries, has never been found. The most likely explanation, based on recent satellite analysis, is that Ichtoi was built on the ancient floodplain of the Nile in a location that has since shifted under the cultivated fields of modern Egyptian agriculture. The government has not authorized systematic survey or test excavation in the area. Farmers would need to be compensated and fields disrupted. The capital of the Middle Kingdom is under farmland. The archive that produced the oldest mathematical papyrus in existence has not been found. No excavation permit for the most probable zone has been issued. 400 years of Egyptian history has no fixed address. Number 2. Abu Qir Bey. 800 AD and present day. We return to Frank Gaudio's discovery, but the story does not end where it began. Thonis Heracleion was not just a port city. The ancient texts that mention it, Herodotus, Diodorus Siculus, Strabo, describe a city that was the mandatory gateway for all Greek and Eastern Mediterranean trade entering Egypt. Every ship arriving from outside Egypt passed through Thonis Heracleion before reaching the Nile. Every pilgrim traveling to the temples of Memphis or Karnak registered their arrival at its customs offices. For 500 years, it was the most commercially important city in the ancient world. The artifacts recovered from the 5% of the site that has been excavated are extraordinary: a 4-meter-high granite statue of a deity with the body of a human and the head of a falcon, dozens of Sphinx statues, a limestone stele confirming the historical account of Helen of Troy's stay in Egypt that Herodotus recorded, ceremonial barges, gold coins from 17 different cultures. The naos of the decades, a stone shrine containing the oldest complete astrological calendar ever discovered, was found in the harbor of Thonis Heracleion, where it had lain since the city sank. It rewrote the history of ancient astronomy. In the remaining 95% of the site, archaeologists have identified harbor structures, temple complexes, a canal network, and residential districts that have never been entered. The Egyptian restriction on independent marine archaeology in Abu Qir Bay, issued as a security measure in 2011, has never been lifted. Gaudio's team, which operates under an exclusive Egyptian government permit, has published findings from approximately 30 excavation seasons. The full catalogue of what they have found has not been made public. The objects in the restricted archive of Thonis Heracleion, recovered but not yet described, have no published inventory. A city that controlled the commerce of the ancient Mediterranean for 5 centuries is 5% studied. The rest is sealed at the bottom of the sea, under a government permit system that has not been open to outside researchers in 14 years. Number 1. Lower Egypt. Present day and for the foreseeable future. Memphis was the first capital of unified Egypt. It was founded by the pharaoh Narmer, who unified the two lands around 3100 BC. For the next 3,000 years, Memphis was the administrative, religious, and commercial center of Egyptian civilization. Every major dynasty had a palace there. The Temple of Ptah, the patron god of craftsmen and architects, was one of the largest religious complexes ever built in the ancient world. The Apis bull cult, the center of royal legitimacy for the new kingdom, was based there. Today, Memphis is a village called Mit Rahina. The ancient city, covering an estimated 30 square kilometers, lies directly beneath the modern town, its agricultural fields, its roads, and its sewage infrastructure. The Egyptian government's own survey, conducted by satellite imaging between 2006 and 2015, mapped the subsurface remains of Memphis with ground-penetrating radar and confirmed the presence of intact structures across the entire area: palace foundations, temple columns, a harbor district extending to the ancient Nile Channel, and what the survey identified as a large underground archive complex adjacent to the Temple of Ptah. The survey findings were presented at the International Congress of Egyptology in 2015. The Egyptian Ministry of Antiquities acknowledged that Memphis represents the largest unexcavated ancient site in the world. No systematic excavation of the buried city has ever been authorized. The obstacles are practical: relocating the residents of Mit Rahina, compensating farmers for their land, managing the water table in a low-lying agricultural district. The obstacles are also political. What Memphis might contain, given that it served as the administrative center of Egypt for 3,000 years, has implications for the national narrative that the Egyptian government has not publicly addressed. What is in the archive complex adjacent to the Temple of Ptah has not been described. No Egyptologist outside the government survey team has seen the full radar data. The permits required to excavate even a test trench in Mit Rahina have not been issued to any outside research institution. The first capital of Egypt, the city that ran the most powerful civilization in human history for 3,000 years, is under a farming village. The archive is there. The radar confirmed it. And it is not being opened. 7 cities. 7 places where the full record of Egyptian civilization is buried, flooded, or locked away before the study could finish. The necropolis at Tanis, where more gold than Tutankhamun's tomb was found in 1939, and never fully excavated because a world war got in the way. The Temple of Osiris at Canopus, at the bottom of the sea, with its medical archive intact. Amarna, where the workers built a city and died doing it, and the report on their bones has not been released. Avaris, where Minoan frescoes in a pharaoh's throne room connect 2 civilizations that were never supposed to meet. Ichtoi, the capital that ran Egypt for 400 years and has no address. Thonis Heracleion, 5% excavated, with 95% of its inventory unpublished. And Memphis, the first capital, the largest unexcavated site in the world, confirmed by radar, never opened. If you want to keep following the evidence, subscribe to Ancient Echoes Uncovered. We publish one discovery like this every week: the data the textbooks skip over, the sites that were sealed before the study was finished, the history that is still underground. Subscribe now. Because the archive beneath Memphis is still there. And no one is being allowed in to read it.